Welcome to Cincinnati's best ever real estate investing mastermind, COVID edition, the September 2020 webinar. I'm Slocomb, your host, and we have with us Mike Ealy. He is the author of the book From Broke to Millions, which is a theme that has played out in his life. Here it is here.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. You have our permission for sure. We invite your questions, those of you who are watching and listening in. There is a Q&A feature in Zoom. It should be towards the bottom of your screen. If you ask your questions there, I will make sure they get answered either right when they're asked or wherever it makes sense based on the questions, the conversation we have planned to get those asked. So your questions, we will get them answered. Use the Q&A feature for the Zoom. Awesome. Well, Mike, if you don't mind, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your story. We're here to talk about real estate investing. How did you get into real estate?
So real estate started years ago, back around 98, 99. Now, I haven't been, and yes, I've been partying like it's 1999, right? But I started off with house hacking before they even coined the phrase that. I was reading about real estate, and I remember I went to the library and I wanted to just make money. And one of the first things I saw were junk bonds. I was reading about junk bonds, and back then you needed $50,000 to get your first investment. And so literally put that book right back on the shelf. And I found Robert Allen's book, No Money Down, in the 90s. And that's when I learned all these different creative ways with bad credit, no credit, a little bit of cash, some cash, on creative ways to buy deals. And so I'll say that was when I was 15, 16. And so when I turned 26, 27, I worked 3 jobs to pay off some bad credit. And I found my first 2-family. I got with limited, put what, 2,000 down, owner financing. And I didn't even know how to paint. I knew nothing about construction, nothing. Matter of fact, when I was painting, my painters, my contractors, my friend, they told me to go back downstairs. I was like, I don't know, how bad is painting? And so I went back downstairs, and next thing you know, I got that rented upstairs for $500. I moved in, my sister, who paid me $200, that covered my $700 mortgage payment. And that was the beginning of me living rent free. Felt like Dave Chappelle and Rick James. I'm rich.
That's awesome. It's amazing what house hacking can do. One thing I want to point out, and then keep going. I don't know if this stood out to the rest of you, but Mike went to the library to learn how to make money. How you never hear about anybody doing that nowadays. I can remember one. I can remember. I'm relatively young, but I can remember going to the library because I needed to learn something. There's a level of hustle that's just implied there, that you were seeking the knowledge even at that point when there weren't resources available to you. It's a lot easier now. But sorry, please.
Oh no, that reminds me. I was telling my kid the other day about encyclopedias. Like, dude, you only had one encyclopedia, which were like 26 different volumes of books, and nobody bought a new one or updated. You know, you didn't get an update every 2 or 3 years. You know, that was it. So if your encyclopedia wasn't updated, you just didn't have the right report.
Yep.
So, but yeah, after I did the house hacking, I got into more 4-families. I got 2 4-families where I didn't have any cash, and I actually talked to my realtor, developed a relationship with him, and he lent me $3,000 for my down payment. And so I took that money for the closing. I purposely made sure that we closed the deal at the beginning of the month. Some of you say, why? Well, number one, I got first month's rent from all the tenants. So that was like $3,000. I collected all the deposits, which was like another $1,000 or so. And let's see, first month's rent deposit. Yeah. So I ended up collecting about $5,000 at closing, took that money, paid my investor off. I didn't have to make a payment until 30, 60 days later. And that was another deal, did no money down. And I kept doing it over and over. I got up to 300,000. I had
Mike, before we get to doing it over and over, we will definitely come back here. But I think you just described your first three deals, your first three real estate investor deals, and they were all owner finance with no money down. That's not a very common beginning in real estate investing for a lot of people. Did you fall into that? Is that something that you studied? How did you learn about no low money down seller financing?
Again, that was Robert Allen, no money down in the 90s. Carlton Sheets. I don't know if any of you guys remember that guy. He was more of over leveraging things. But the issue was I didn't have any money. I didn't have any good credit. Remember, I was working 3 jobs to build up enough cash to pay off my bad debt to get my credit together. And because of that, I had to be creative. And you know, I really wanted to be in real estate. So if there's something you really desire, you're going to figure it out. And I just used the techniques. I believe what I read, I put them into practice. You know, it's kind of like anything. You find a mentor, you find a book, find something you can relate to and apply it. And sure, you're going to make some mistakes, but that's okay.
That's awesome. You were just getting ready to tell us about how your investing moved forward from there.
Yeah, so I kept buying, finally got my credit together, so I was getting debt. But then I was even having owners back then. You can get the owner to hold a second mortgage. So literally I was coming to the table with no money out of pocket. And but then I got to a point, I ended up having 2 full service car washes. Like I said, I was making $300,000 a year. You may not believe it, but I had long hair down to my shoulders, had the cornrows. Right now, I just have, I don't know what this is, just the bald. And what happened? I lost it all. Moved back home with my mom and dad, and they painted my room pink and lavender. And I was 30 years old, and it was pretty sexy, you know? And, but from there, I worked my way out of it again, but that's when I really transformed. I just really studied. I got my real estate license to find out what the market was like. And from there, I started buying houses, and then I got my first investor. He gave me a line of credit of about $200,000 at 10% at 2 points. And, you know, I just kept going from there and never looked back. And started doing joint ventures with other people. But really in 2008, 2009, in the Great Recession, I came back because of my loss in 2001. I learned how to do short sales, buy non-performing notes, work with banks. And I ended up getting amazing deals. I started buying portfolios. I was working with people, starting a relationship. They had money, I had deals, they would fund them. And that was it. And we just kept working at it. And I just kept partnering. We just kept doing bigger deals.
Is a lot of learning and growth, both personal and professional, that had to have happened during that time. I know I asked you to go over it briefly, but you've talked about a lot of things here that I imagine most of the people hearing this are imagining doing sometime in the future, or wish they could find out how to do that now. Well, first, let me ask, you said you were an owner operator of car washes in 2001.
Yeah.
You've written a book about this, so I feel like I can ask, what happened?
Man, so it definitely wasn't drive or tenacity, but as I like to say, people don't plan to fail, but fail to plan. And I didn't really have a plan. I just put a budget. It looked like it made money, but I didn't have any reserves. I didn't have any escrows. Nobody expected a downturn, right? You didn't expect like, oh, you're gonna have some bad months. Like, I don't care what business you have, where you're at in life, you're gonna have a cash flow shortage, no matter what happens. And so you gotta have reserves. I didn't have that, and it killed me. So now I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. Gas and electric bills coming, and I'm taking from my apartments, and now I can't pay my apartment bills, and then it just started becoming to fall down. And that's how I lost everything. And then 9/11 happened. Matter of fact, 9/11 and the riots all happened in 1 year.
You grew up in Cincinnati, right?
Yeah.
So all of your investing in that time was happening in the Cincinnati area. What parts of Cincinnati?
So my car washes was in Reading, Ohio. I had one in Mount Healthy. I had apartments in Avondale, Hamilton, and a lot in Westwood. A lot of Westwood was easy to get into. It was low entry point, wasn't really competitive. And quite frankly, people don't go to Westwood. That's a whole nother side of town.
Yeah. Question, what does it feel like for buying apartments to not be competitive? I would love to know what that feels like. Even Westwood, I know I'm struggling to find good deals right now anywhere. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree. Back then, if you wrote an offer on something, you and the individual would negotiate, and I mean, it wasn't too many times I would lose a deal. If there was a deal, I would get it. Even at auctions, I was very, I got pretty much everything I want. Now there was times when I didn't, but for the most part, even at auctions, we were winning. I would say, and then in 2008 through 2012, I was spoiled. Like anything we were writing on, we got. But now I will say, I had direct relations with a lot of brokers, with the bank. So they knew me, they knew what we were doing. So they didn't want to work with anybody else. So, we knew what we could get it for and what we can offer. So it wasn't really a lot of haggling back and forth.
You've mentioned relationships and partners several times. When it's already apparent that you value networking and adding value to people. Tell us about what you look for in these partnerships or when you're building these business relationships.
One of the first things is aligning in goals, making sure you're going in the same directions. And quite frankly, make sure you have, same value, more on ethically. Because a lot of people are like, oh, this guy got $1 million. This guy's got $2 million. He'll invest with me. Well, I've turned that money down before. And trust me, I needed the money. I literally needed the money. But when you take other people's money, they come with other issues as well. And if you don't have a good relationship, you don't value each other's time, it creates a complexity. And then I'm in for the long term. I want to work with people I like. A partnership is almost like a marriage. And I was fortunate enough to watch fast track multiple family dynasties. Start off with grandpa, then pass off to the son, then pass off to uncle and the children, grandchildren, etc. And what happens, these people and partners, family, first of all, I don't know about you, but if you got a big family and after you went from grandma or grandpa to dad to cousins to the next generation, you don't even know your family. Like I mean, seriously, I'm not trying to be funny, but I go to a family reunion, there's so many people, I was like, I don't know who they are. Oh, you're like, you're my cousin. I'm okay if you say so. But my point is, you're going to be working with people that didn't see what grandpa had to do to get that. And so they, what do they call it? Not inherited, but they just expect it to be that way.
Entitlement.
Entitlement. There you go. And they just feel it's their right to have this. And so they don't respect it. And so they'll treat you with a lack of respect. And that's where you can butt heads because people don't agree and have the same philosophies. And so, you know, if you guys, and look, there's going to be times in the business where it's not working out right. Do you really want to be with somebody you really don't like in the bad times? Like that could be terrible, man. And so, you know, I was blessed that I learned that early before I had multiple partners. And like, I love where I'm at because the people I partner with, when there's trouble like COVID, I'm with great partners. And instead of stabbing each other in the back, we're working cohesively together to figure out how we can make it through and generate more money and create better marketing. So
It's easy. I know until a couple years ago, all of my investing I was doing individually. And when I say individually, I mean my wife and I. But I was doing it without partners outside of my wife. And then I started working with partners in 2017. And it's really easy to go into a partnership not thinking about how long it will be and what it may look like if things go south. Treating it like a marriage or treating it like you're dating. One of my most recent partnerships with a gentleman named Peter Chabris, the Chabris Group of Keller Williams Seven Hills. He and I spent months discussing what a partnership would look like, and then we made sure we got everything in writing in an operating agreement about how the partnership would operate before we ever did a deal together, because we knew there was a lot of potential there. We wanted to make sure that we had a solid foundation from which to be building our partnership. That's really helpful. Mike, I know you mentioned the you mentioned COVID and what's going on right now. I know you have a handful or more than a handful of apartments in the Cincinnati area, right? Are all of your long-term residential apartments in the Cincinnati area?
yeah, pretty much. Everything I have is pretty much in Cincinnati as far as
Okay.
apartments. Now, we've done deals outside the state and the city, but the
Well,
ones I keep.
yeah, we'll definitely come back to that. I know you're also in hotels.
That's right.
How did that come about?
Uh, man, 5, 6 years, maybe longer than that now. 7 years ago, I had the opportunity to participate in the development, even though that didn't move forward. Um, we started learning about hotels. You know, I was looking at doing office space or apartments. And like, I was like, nah, I brought it to you. He was like, we're going to do a hotel. And then I started learning how much money they were making and the returns and the cash flow and how technically uh, you can buy cash flow from a hotel cheaper than you can from an apartment. Now, it wasn't always like that, but like right now, $1 million cash flow on an apartment in an A or B neighborhood, that's going to cost you at a 6.5 cap, right? Whereas a hotel at $1 million cash flow, I can pick that up at 8.5. So what that means is I could pick up $1 million cash flow for like 12 million. And if I did apartment cash flow, it'll cost me 16, 17 million.
Why do you think that is, that the cap rates on hotels were higher?
Well, first of all, the demand for apartments kicked in. So apartments weren't always at 6.5. Like at the time, we just really hit 6.5 in the last year. year and a half or so. But one reason the hotels are selling at a higher cap rate, you're paying for the inconsistency. Hotels, apartments, I don't care what kind of correction or recession we go to, they typically, even if you got a decrease in vacancy, you still got cash flow coming in, and you may decrease your occupancy by 10 or 15%, but it's spread out and you should still have consistent cash flow coming in. And hotels is really based on the economy. When the economy is great, hotels are tearing it up. You just got money literally coming out of your ears. But when the hotel is down, the economy is down, the hospitality industry takes a hit. And COVID is a perfect example. Apartments are still doing pretty good. Now we expect to see some deals come out of this, but a lot of apartment people are still collecting. Hotels across the country, retail, they taking major hits left and right. They're at 29 to 35% occupancy, unless you what they call the extended stay, like a Residence Inn or a Homewood Suites.
Mike, what do those occupancy rates need to look like for an apartment to be viable? Or sorry, for a hotel to be viable?
So normally for a hotel in that 8 to 12 million range, you need to be at like 55, 62%. Well, no, that's more like 12 million, but realistically, 55 is your number if you run in full throttle, and a hotel typically in that range costs anywhere from 125 to 135,000 a month to operate. That's your debt, your taxes, insurance, labor, at minimum. And so you need to be at 55 to kind of hit those numbers every month. And with a ADR, average daily rate, which is equivalent to a monthly rate, but hotels have a daily rate that they change.
Mike, is that 50% occupancy to break even?
About 50, 55, yeah.
55, okay, gotcha. Yep. Please continue.
At about $100 or more ADR, your average daily rate. And if you hit that, you can be fine. But right now in the market, because no one's really traveling, people are at 27%, 32% occupancy. Unless you're in the area where it's more like a destination area, like Florida or the mountains or something like that, they're actually seeing 50% plus. Like some of the people in Florida or in the mountains, they're going to see, they may see their projected budget or even do better. But overall, you got over, just to give you an idea, in 2019 in December, you only had 1.3 or 1.4 hotels in default. I think in March or April of 2020, you had over 24% in default. Wow. And that's climbing aggressively.
Mike, I understand the apartment game much better than hotels. I'm making a comparison in my head. Tell me how this applies to hotels. In my networking and my cold calling, marketing, lead generating for apartment deals, what I'm finding is that since COVID, with apartment complexes, yes, vacancy is up. If on a macro scale, there is a high percentage of tenants, particularly C-class tenants, who did not make rent or had to make partial rent. What I'm seeing, though, is that the performance of a property depends very greatly in the last 6 months on its management. So the owner operators that I know here in Cincinnati, meaning the investor is local and they manage it, or the investor has a local partner who's actively involved in management. Those people, or people who have really good property managers, have seen 100% of rents collected every month, or close to 100% rents, as close as normal, to 100% rents collected every month here in Cincinnati. But some of the more amateur owner operators, the plumber who decides he's sick of working in other people's properties, he wants his own, so he gets some apartments on the side, or the person from the West Coast or the East Coast who says, hey, cash flow in the Midwest, spend some money in Cincinnati, pick a manager out of the phone book. Those people are really suffering, and have been really suffering since April rent collection, because those people are getting hit with all of the non-payment, all of the late payment. Those people are getting hit with the vast majority of the additional evictions, and it has a lot to do with how those apartments are being managed. Is that translating to hotels where you see that some of them are performing normally and others are not? Are there any factors in the last 6 months that are keeping some hotels performing well, but putting others into default?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna definitely say for the most part, these hotels that are in default are failing. Uh, I would not say it's management. I know some hotels that they've done everything right. They market right. They keep their place clean. They treat their guests as superstars. Um, they just did everything right year after year. They did the PIPs. They paid the investors. They done everything right. It's just COVID. I mean, and it was just weird that right next door to it is a Residence Inn, and right next to that is the Courtyard, and they own both of it. Courtyard is below 30% occupancy. The Residence Inn is at 65, 70% occupancy. Look, people are not traveling anymore. And unlike, for example, the Courtyard is heavily dependent on the business traveler. The business traveler is not traveling. And quite frankly, I believe 15%, and I'm not just the only one, there's economists that's predicting the same thing. 15% of the business travel is not coming back. Why? Well, Zoom now. We don't have to be with each other. Technology. We could be much more efficient being online. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people still want to meet face to face, but it's not always necessary. So now it's more leisure travel. And so now they're going to go places where it's not crowded. So they're not going to Times Square. They're not going to LA. They're going to the mountains. They're going camping. They're going places that are away from people. And that's why mountains, they're going biking. So camp, those are why those places are doing much more better than others.
Gotcha. We had a question. We've covered a couple of questions already from our viewers. One just asked, do you have any experience with Airbnb or any of those other short-term rental services?
Yes, I tried Airbnb. I mean, it worked out great. I had one actually in Coreyville. I was renting it for, I don't know, I played around in that $100 to $225 a night. And I noticed if I rented it for, I don't know, $99 a night or $110 a night, I could get good service, but it'll still be spotty. And so when it was all said and done, I could make an extra probably $500 to $1,000 more a month by doing an Airbnb, which is great. But I'm not a hands-on guy anymore. This was not my only property. So now that was your time factor. Even though I'm not really managing it, but I got to make sure that my leasing agent is getting it cleaned, adjusted, and put back out on the market. Quite frankly, I think the more Airbnb style is the future of hotels. They're going to have more like what they call extended stay feel. So anything that feels more like an apartment or a home, I think those are going to be more successful in the future, but everything is dependent on location. But But, Airbnb is great. I just, it's not for me. It's just too much work. And quite frankly, I know a couple of people that were they did all their apartments and houses Airbnb, and they had them booked up for $99 a night, and they were killing it, but they going to clean it up themselves every week. And it was like, look, I'm not dealing with a tenant that's bringing more wear and tear. But me personally, I'd rather have me a tenant that was paying me, $1,800 a month than going in and changing it every 2 days. That was just too much work for me. I'm kind of lazy.
I am too. You have to learn, of course, and this is what I think you're saying, Mike. You have to learn how to treat this like a business, and your business needs systems. Airbnb, from my limited experience, is much more hands-on, and it's much more involved. It did not take me long to hire an Airbnb manager to handle all of that stuff for me.
Yeah.
And now that my portfolio's grown a bit, I have a full-time assistant who part of her responsibility is to handle those Airbnbs. Because like you said, my units are making considerably more doing Airbnb. It's finally also not taking any more of my time because I've been able to hire somebody to help me with it.
Mm-hmm.
What advice, given your experience in the hotel industry, and how you think the hotel industry is headed more towards the Airbnb model, for those of us who have short-term rentals or are using our apartments furnished as short-term rentals, what advice do you have coming from your experience with your Airbnbs and from the hotel industry?
Yeah, so everything now is about the experience. So it's all about the package. So if you want people to come back and stay, make sure they have an experience when they walk into the door. I'm not saying you got to have presents or everything, but maybe you do have some Coke and water sitting there for them when they first in, or you have a little note at the door when they walk in. Make sure it's clean. Make sure you're responding quickly. And also, market on social media. Just don't be dependent on Airbnb. You can run ads on Facebook, LinkedIn, and whatever, Instagram that targets this area for staycations. So, but the biggest thing is making sure they have an experience. And if you're not sure what that is, YouTube, man. Hey, you don't have to go to the library anymore. You can go online and check out what everybody else is doing. But if you could create a great experience, that kind of wow factor, people write great reviews, and I think you'll have a great experience with your Airbnb.
Awesome. A couple of things I pulled out of that. Marketing your Airbnbs on social media. Don't just rely on Airbnb or the other short-term rental platforms for your marketing, but also make sure that you're managing your guests' experience. Reviews really do matter in this space. It took me over a year to get superhost status on Airbnb, and we were into COVID by the time that I had it. It took me too long to hire a professional manager. That's why I was cleaning it myself for the first month or so, and my reviews let me know how much of a mistake that was, and it took me a year to crawl out of that hole. Mike, what are you thinking about non-residential commercial real estate right now?
Non-residential commercial. So are we talking like warehouse, office, retail?
Correct. Do you have any experience in those arenas? Is that something that you're currently looking into? Is it something you're avoiding?
So warehouse, I think, is an amazing space right now, all because of logistics. So many people are shipping packages and need storage space. And I'm sure it's a demand for that. Some of it called flex office space, where you could take that warehouse and still have office space as well. But now that I did that, I don't know if I'll do it again. That's just not my space. It's not what I do. but I think you can be very profitable. I like it because I have a warehouse now, and now that it's leased and I kind of did owner finance it to sell it, I don't go over there. Nobody calls me. It's not like a tenant, you know, they handle everything. I just collect the check. It's mailbox money. So when it works, it works. And that's why I like commercial buildings. I did do a flip on a commercial building downtown. It's about 13,000 square feet, kind of retail and office, but I'm just flipping it. I think I picked it up for 350, and we got some offers for about 500,000 right now. So, but you know, I don't want to develop it. It's just not my space. But office space right now, anyway, I'm a little concerned about. I think it needs to be these small little suites, right? I think those will go really fast. I've seen a lot of success in those. These little small, you can call them mom and pop or lawyers, and they're just looking for their little 300, 400, 500 square feet of office space that they can have with theirs with cutting costs. I think those go well. But me, again, I kind of stay out of that space unless I just got a really amazing deal.
Gotcha. I heard a rumor. I know you're very active when it comes to engaging your network on social media. I heard a rumor recently that you've done a lot of raising of funds for your deals through Facebook recently.
Uh, yes, but no. So,
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about how you're using social media and how you're using Facebook in your business.
so without a doubt, I use Facebook as my marketing. Um, I'm sharing content. I'm adding value to people. And so what I do is, long story, I'm taking people that never knew me or had no interest in real estate. So I'll call that a cold market. And by seeing my content, seeing who I am, seeing my family, seeing some of the deals where I'm now piquing interest. So now they move into a warm market. From that warm market, you know, they may purchase my book. And they learn more about me and learn more real estate, and they see that it's real. So then they may take a class. And from there, they may go into Mastermind. But either course, I'm training you how to raise money, how to analyze deals, where to find deals, whether it's multi-units and hotels. And then from there, they see all the content, they may take a class. Then from there, they reach out to me. Some with investment inquiries, some they go to my website and have interest in investing. So I'm never out there saying, hey, invest with me. I don't do that. And technically, well, you could if you have your right fund agreement together, or 506C, you know, I believe that's accredited. And as long as you do that, you can raise money, solicit for accredited investors. But again, seek a lawyer to, you know, I don't want you to listen to me. But always, by the time an investor comes to me, they already like what I'm doing. All I'm doing is find questions they ask. And yes, so technically I am raising a lot of money, but not directly through Facebook.
Gotcha. I know your Facebook group, and we can get a link to your Facebook group, Apartment Investing Secrets, out to all of our viewers by email afterwards. Cody, that's on you. We'll get a link to your Facebook group out to all of our viewers after this webinar concludes. So I know you said you're doing seminars and masterminds as well as having a presence on Facebook.
Yes, right.
What do those masterminds look like?
So the mastermind group is where you literally once a week, you'll hear from me. You'll get the master classes, which are 6 modules where we go in again. We talk about operating agreements, your legal settings, the PPMs, how to analyze the deal, how to set up your pro forma, how to market, how to utilize social media. And then you get all that information. Then weekly, you'll check in with me. And I even talk to you about how to raise money, what you should say, what you should not say, how to be SEC compliant. And once a week, you get on the phone, we do a Zoom call, and we talk about deals. And potentially, if you find a deal and we like it, we'll fund it. And you can become part of the GP, or you just be a passive investor of the LP. You get first dibs on looking at some of our deals. So Mastermind has been really successful. I'm really excited for my students, even the ones that took the master class. I'm actually kind of jealous of them. I mean, these guys within, some real estate experience, very limited experience, in 6 weeks or less, these guys are meeting people and raised, for someone never raised anyone, raised 100 grand. And I had another guy bring an investor that had over 200 million. It was just amazing. And they knew exactly what to say. They know how to bring the investor in. And, and then also you can use me to help close your guy. And that's what we've done. And so, it's me helping everyone and adding value. And between that, we're raising money, we're finding deals. It's a big network, it's a big team, and everybody's winning.
That's awesome, Mike. If someone watching now or listening in the future wants to connect with you about these opportunities, what's the best way to do that?
We got a couple of ways. So one is initially just go to Apartment Investing Secrets, our Facebook group. You can always go there, where we always sharing a lot of content on how to pitch, how to raise capital, how to find deals. But you also can get my book, From Broke to Millions. You can go to www.frombroketoMillions.com. You can order my book. And from there, you'll get a free webinar about, taking some other courses. And, but like here, I don't, it's great to take the course, but I really want to do a deal. And so really all this is about is like, if you really want to do deals and you're serious, take the course and let's make some deals happen. Whether you want to invest, whether you just bring the deal, we're willing to work it out, but I just want to make sure you have the format and you understand how the process works.
Awesome. I'd like to transition our conversation to looking more at the Cincinnati market in detail and looking at what you think, Mike, the future looks like. But first, we have a question from the audience. Given your experience, your investing experience, what advice do you have for someone who's currently a student who doesn't have a lot of money, who wants to get into real estate investing?
Current student, not a lot of money. One, just study a lot. Start networking, whether it's RIA, whether it's a group like these, Joe Fairless, watch webinars. Number two, get around a mentor or someone that's definitely doing it. Because, here's a perfect example. I wanted to get in the hotel industry. I didn't have any hotel experience. And hotels are tough to get into. You got to have the net worth. And if you don't have the net worth, you got to find somebody. You got to have hotel experience, else they won't let you manage one of these franchise hotels. If you're doing new construction, you got to find an architect, et cetera. So what I did was I put me an amazing team together. I found me a skilled architect. I found hotel operators that had over $1 billion in assets, and they actually joint venture with me. And then with that, I found me a investor that owned hotels, and they would sign debt for me. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it on that big scale, but if you begin to surround yourself in these networks, and the biggest thing is add value, find out what people are looking for. And that's how you'll start connecting. For example, if you were just some guy off the street later, someone, you were like, hey, Mike, I just want to do a deal and I don't have any experience. I don't have any money. Will you do a deal with me? First of all, I'm probably not going to take the phone call. I'm like, look, go through the steps, read the book, do something, come back when you have something. And so, but understand this, let's say I got a guy that brings me a deal once a year and I'm making 100 grand off that deal every year. I got 2 people like that. Guess whose call I'm gonna take first, right? So my point is add value, find out what people want, find out what people need and bring it to them. Put the work in, learn about it, learn as much as you can, and start shuffling people deals. And then once you figure it out, man, you can take on the world, man. I mean, all you need is a deal. You don't necessarily need money. If you don't have money, you don't need money to do deal. Heck, I didn't have credit. I didn't have cash, but I did have a deal, and that's how I got started.
That's awesome. So make sure you're doing, for the student who doesn't have a lot of money, make sure you're doing a lot of studying and a lot of networking. Get around a mentor, build a team, and start putting the pieces together, putting the people together to get these deals done. One of those pieces, those people that you bring together, they can be the ones who are bringing the money, so long as you are in a position to add value to them and to the partnership. Am I hearing that correctly, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, look, man, I promise you, and I know you would, if somebody brought you a deal and didn't have no money, I'm sure you'll figure it out and pay them for their assistance.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so you have value. Just go figure it, learn what people need and apply it and give it to them.
That's awesome. Mike, let's talk about Cincinnati in particular. Some of our listeners, viewers are not from Cincy, but the majority of them are. And I am. That's the area where my investments are as well.
Yep.
It's September of 2020. You have a portfolio of apartments already. What neighborhoods are you looking to buy in right now?
I mean, I'm open. It's the deal. You know, I'm looking at the market is changing so much. Like for a while, it's just in C properties. So I knew I could add value in the cash flow. But then I start moving to A and B properties because I noticed, even though they was like, oh my goodness, at one time all I could do was sell this at an 8 cap. Well, now I can sell it at a 6 cap. But listen, they never increased the rents. So in actuality, it was like I bought the deal at a 10 cap. All I had to do was go in and push the rents by 150, 200, and they left a lot of meat on the bone because they was like, oh, I don't have to do anything. Whereas if they would have went in and rehabbed it or just cleaned it up or just pushed the rent, they would have got even more money. That's kind of my same strategy. I think I'm gonna try to do 1 or 2 more deals, one more, deal before the end of the year for a multi-unit. And then I think I'm gonna sit back and see where this market takes us. Kind of the statement is I'm always buying, but my strategy is kind of changing somewhat because of the market.
Are you doing more selling or buying right now, specific to apartments in Cincinnati?
I would say buying, but I haven't bought anything since March, April. I did, how many we got this year? Well, we flipped the 400 unit package and then we kept like 120 and yeah, I think we only did about 20 million, 30 million this year. I'm lagging, man. We did 100 million last year and actually before COVID, we had a lot lined up, but that kind of wiped that out, but that's okay. Now they're raining manna hotels from heaven from hotels. So we'll pick that up from there.
I believe I saw you post on Facebook that you're pretty aggressive about finding and buying hotel deals right now. Is that your focus with acquisitions?
Yeah, that's look, I'm still buying apartments, but if you put a hotel in front of me and it makes sense, that hotel is going to the top of the list. Literally, somebody brings me a deal, I look at it, and next day or the day after, I may fly out of town or drive out of town to check it out. Already I have basically 4, maybe 5 hotels that we potentially closing. 2 in Oklahoma, 2 in Milwaukee, and then 1 in Indiana, but I don't know. And then I'm meeting more and more buyers. That's kind of expanding my horizon on deals. So to acquire 100, I made that a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. And I was like, I have no idea how I'm gonna make this happen. But as the more I thought about it, more deals start coming, more cash start coming, and we got creative. The deals are there. It's just a matter of now picking through it. And literally, somebody's shifting. I'm getting deals every week.
Question from a listener. Were you having a problem with your C area properties that took you to A and B? What about D properties?
Ooh,
The
Lord.
listener grew up in Avondale and is interested in getting their second property there.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the story. And Avondale is great. It's changing. It's regenderfying. Matter of fact, my last deal in Avondale is going to be an amazing return. I actually turned the deal down about 2 or 3 times over a 2-year, 3-year period, and I ended up buying one on Eden and Irwin. If you're familiar with that, out off of Forest, and I gutted all the units. I knew the rents were increasing because just over a 2-month period, like in C areas, rents went from like 500 or 600 to 800 to 900 for a 2-bedroom. It was ridiculous. And so that made that number great, but I knew that whole area was going to change. And so I bought, we did a deal where we were all in for 1.7. I was conservative. I felt once we were done, it'd be worth 2.3. And I was so wrong. We end up getting 1,200 a unit. And so now it's worth 3.6 million. So I like when I'm wrong. Okay.
And that's 1,200 per 2-bedroom in Avondale on Eden and Irwin.
It's changing. They're about to build houses and sell them for like 275, 350 a piece. There's more apartments coming there. Messer Construction just did a big tower, or still building it. I'm not sure if it's done or not, for Children's Hospital. So more and more jobs are coming to the neighborhood. They've cleaned out a lot of things in that area. But me, I started off in D and F neighborhoods. I bought in Lincoln Heights because that was the only area we could buy in at the time. That was the only area we understood. And I made money. In D and F neighborhoods, you're going to cash flow, but you're going to have tons of maintenance, tons of CapEx experience, and a lot of excuses. And it's management intensive. And so I even started off in the West End before the West End became this over the Rhine thing, right? I made a lot of money there, but I got tired of, literally, people shooting. And literally, here's the difference. In my D and F neighborhoods, right around November, December, right around Christmas, tenants will call, Mr. Mike, I'm gonna be late with my rent. And I was like, okay, that's cool. What are we talking about? February, around tax return time. I'm like, well, damn. And but you know what? I had to work with my tenants because that was the market I was in, and they paid, but every once in a while somebody didn't. But when I moved to C and B properties, just to give you an idea, when they say, Mr. Mike, I'm gonna be late with my rent, and I was like, they calling on the 28th or the 30th, and I was like, well, what's late? I'll have it to you on the 3rd. I'm like,
right.
Don't let it happen again, okay? Don't you let that happen again.
Oh, I know. Until when I was in A and B markets exclusively at the beginning, and yeah, I had people on the 25th of the month telling me that it'd be in on the 7th, and they'd make sure they paid the late fees. Now that I'm getting into lower income markets, you're right. I had never had a tenant disappear in the middle of the night and leave me the dirty half of their stuff in their apartment until I started investing in lower income areas.
Yeah, no, it's different, man. It's different.
Question that came out of your conversation about two-bedroom rents in Avondale. When it comes to C and D areas, um, when you're looking at where you should put your rents, how much how much are you weighing them against what Section 8 will pay?
Oh, I use Section 8 as my baseline. And then, because that's like, all right, that's the cheapest, or I should get, right? And, but I also kind of just see what's going on in the neighborhood. I do still use Section 8. I have no problem. Actually, they're not in my A and B properties, but I still use Section 8. And I push it to the max. But you have to discount because Section 8, they go through, man, it's crazy. 1 month they paying $900, the next month they trying to fight you and only pay you $750. So those are one things I dislike. But I still check what they have and see what the market. And I use that conservative number for my estimate. So for example, even though I knew I could get 929 from Section 8, I took in the reality that 2 bedrooms are really going for 725, 750. So Section 8 defaulted, I kind of met in the middle and I based my performer off of 800. And guess what happened? Section 8 didn't want to pay the 929. They only wanted to pay like 860 or 825. So sometimes I kind of just meet in the middle. And, some simple things you can do is, what is that? Rent-a-meter. I use that all the time. I mean, something that I think they tend to charge now, but, that's an easy service you can use. There's some other things you can use, but it's much more expensive.
Mike, how many apartments do you have to own before it's worth $100 a year to use Rent-A-Meter? That was a joke, for the record.
No, but that's a good question when you get into these programs, because I can't think of some of them programs are like $1,000, $2,500 a month, man. So no, seriously.
I went ahead and Rent-A-Meter, $100 a year, unlimited searches, unlimited reports. I got into CoStar recently.
CoStar, yeah.
The baseline for CoStar is 400 something a month. And I'm finding in some cases that Rent-A-Meter has more accurate information when it comes to rents. I was looking at a property in Eastgate where CoStar was telling me 1 bedrooms were comping at about $525 a month for rent, Renometer was telling me $725 a month. So I figured, why not look at the current market, apartments.com, HotPads, Zillow, and they were all in the sevens.
Yeah.
So I don't know where CoStar was getting there. CoStar owns apartments.com, and they were still telling me it was 500 something.
You know, they're still learning, I guess. They update the systems.
Yeah. So, likely last question about Cincinnati. Looking forward 10 years, Mike, what what in 2030, what parts of town will we be looking back to 2020 and saying, you know, I really wish I had invested there, or I really wish I would have bought this deal in that neighborhood? What do you think those neighborhoods are going to be?
Oh, Uptown, man. I mean, Uptown's been growing rapidly.
Clifton,
Yep,
Coreyville.
exactly. That whole neighborhood, Avondale. I mean, people. Matter of fact, I mean, you can't. Matter of fact, in Avondale now, man, even the junk costs 200,000. So it's getting tough out there. Inner city. Um, yeah, I mean, those are areas where it's just hot, man. Because Avondale is still where you can buy land kind of cheap. Whereas, like, you know, you go to Marymount or somewhere else, you got to tear a house down and build. That's 200-300 grand. Avondale, you still can find something, you know, 50,000 or less. A nice lot of land, and that
How
whole
do you
neighborhood's
feel?
changing.
How do you feel about Mount Auburn?
Mount Auburn's in that boat. That's uptown. Same thing.
What, and there may be some obvious answers here, but what is it about Uptown that is drawing so much attention and is bringing in so much appreciation and redevelopment?
Well, that's the Uptown leadership, Uptown Consortium, which put together you know, so what is it? Uptown is the second largest employment base in the city, besides downtown. I can't remember how many are employed downtown. Maybe I don't know. I might be lying, 100,000, but I remember Uptown. It was up to 62,000 employees in that area, but they didn't have, you know, places to eat. People didn't feel safe. And so they got the highway over there. You'll see some major developments going on. They've got 100,000 square feet of retail and office coming in off the main intersection. So you got the university, which is another university, and the zoo are two of the largest employment bases in the city, and they're expanding rapidly. The university and the students are expanding. So you got a lot of income in those neighborhoods that was leaving that city, what they call leakage. And so they wanted to make sure that money stayed in. So that's why the Uptown Consortium did a lot of things. And not only that, was got Evanston. What did they got? The Port Authority. They put a lot of money into that as well. And so, you know, all of that area, not Evendale, I forgot.
Avondale.
Not Avondale, and I just said it, Woodburn, Walnut Hills,
Walnut Hills.
and I forgot that part of Woodburn. Evanston. All those are going to be major markets in the city.
I was going to ask you about three neighborhoods. You just named two of them, but what do you think, Mike, about Camp Washington?
You know, I like Camp Washington. I think that's moving much slower than I anticipated. They got a
Why
lot
is
of
that?
community support. I actually thought Camp Washington would be a little more built up by now. But there's some deals over there.
It sounds, Mike, like you're telling me there might be some juicy opportunity there, since that's a neighborhood that should be in the path of progress but is lagging behind. Are you seeing opportunity in Camp Washington?
I haven't lately because I haven't been looking. But I remember quite a few, like warehouse style apartments that just did extremely well over there. And it's a nice little ducked off area. But it just got a little more work to do.
Awesome. So the next thing and the last big topic I want to get into before we wrap up with a couple of viewer questions. I want to hear, Mike, anytime you talk about the future, of course it's speculation, but what are you projecting from the next 12 months in real estate investing in Cincinnati? What are you expecting the market to do?
But within the 12 months, we'll find out what these memorandums or whatever it is.
Moratorium.
Moratoriums, yeah, they should fall off. We're going to see where this market, where it really falls at. I'm already getting contact about short sales.
What do you think we're going to see?
I think we're going to see a lot of short sales coming. I think you're going to have an uptick in travel starting here in March because, the vaccine should be out of its third phase. So it'll be a mass production by, March. Now, that doesn't mean everybody will have it, but it'll be ready, available at the hospital. So what that means is people can go out and now believe they're not going to die when they go out. And so it'll be a slow uptick ramping up through March and onward. But I think we're going to see a lot of deals start popping up. Because now typically why I say this, hotels, the hospitality industry, retail, hotels, et cetera, restaurant, entertainment, they're all economy driven. So when the hotels go down, typically that's an indicator of what everything else is going to happen. And literally hotels are falling out of the sky. If we don't get another PPP, which is another lifeline, a lot of people are going to be hurt. And now if they don't get this lifeline out, this PPP, I expect to see a lot of things happening. Unemployment, so you can't evict them people. Now they finally start to get evicted. They're going to fight it. They'll probably put more moratoriums, foreclosures. They're going to start that, kick that off as well. And people are going to be fighting, to say, stay home, stay in their houses. And I think you're going to have more houses being sold by mortgage notes now than you will like open on the market.
Tell us more about that. You think houses are going to be sold by mortgage note?
Yeah. So when the Great Recession happened, they had so many foreclosures that it was just overwhelming and it crushed the market. So what they did was later on, they started creating programs that said, look, I don't want you foreclosing, especially Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They held them and they sold them off to investors. As long as you qualify, you could buy a bulk. I think it was like 20 million at a time. And they made it so the outside investor could buy it. I remember going to some programs for that. And so I think history is going to repeat itself. They're going to be much smarter because if they overload the market with all these foreclosures, it'll change the pricing. You'll have like another housing crisis. So in order to kind of control the market, I think they're going to sell the mortgage notes at a discount in packages. And I think that you will see deals, and I think they'll be discounted, but I don't think they're going to be as discounted as people believe they are.
Mike, I have some thoughts on why I don't think they'll be as discounted. I want to ask about that specifically in a moment. But when you're talking about these mortgages, these notes that you expect will be sold at discounted packages, are you expecting those packages to be 20 million bucks a piece again, or are investors with less capital than that going to be able to get a piece of the action?
No, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have these big hedge fund or investment groups. They're going to come in and buy it up. You're going to, like any big distributor, one guy is going to buy everything, and then they're going to have funnels. But like those guys got smarter. Like this, what happened last time. You have big hedge fund buying all this bad debt, and then they didn't know what to do, so they were just selling it. But then they figured like, oh, dude, we can fix these up and rent and make tons of cash flow, and we're not losing money. For once, we're not buying these businesses that are fluctuating. We got solid assets. And I think a lot of them are going to keep it in-house and create systems to do that. I mean, what was that, Blackstone, BlackRock? I mean, they did
Blackstone,
it. Yeah. Now they do everything in real estate, but Buffett did it. You have so many investment groups, and there's just so much capital out there, and they're looking for set returns. They're just going to pay it. They're just going to pay it. Like, well, I don't care. Like, I'm still looking at hotel deals. Now, yes, they're selling at a 20, 30% discount, but it should sell so much lower. I have no idea why somebody would pay that almost retail for some of these deals.
You were just saying that you don't think the recession, at least in real estate investing, will be as bad as people are projecting. Why do you not think it will be that bad?
Because, there's going to be a lot of controls in place. Yes, I think there's going to be a lot of foreclosures, but like I said, these big groups are going to hold on to them. They're not going to release them, and they're going to hold on to the deals. I don't think they're going to be widely available. I could be wrong, but I think you're going to be able to find you some deals, but you got to be in your relationships. I don't think they're going to just hit the market like they did last time. I think you're going to have relationships to get in.
For those of you who are watching, when there's a brief pause after Mike says something that sounds really important, that's because I'm taking notes, and I sure as hell hope that you are too, because this is really good stuff. And so apologies for the pauses. Take advantage of them and take some notes. There are a couple of things that I'm seeing. Let me see if I can put this into my words and let me know whether or not you agree with it. One of the things that I'm seeing from looking at the same elephant from a different perspective. Oh, yes, the people I know in the industry who are paying attention are building up liquid reserves. The phrase I keep hearing is dry powder. In fact, Blackstone put out a release that they had 156 billion liquid waiting for something to happen in the real estate market so that they could buy up these massive packages like you were saying. And I think there are a lot of people who want to predict that 2008 is happening again, and they want to be right. And the availability of that capital when the real estate investing market does turn is actually going to keep it floating higher than it would have if those people weren't making these predictions. Are we saying the same thing, Mike?
No, I think so. I mean, you said like you got a guy with 186 billion, like he's controlling the market, and they can do it all in house. That's one reason I jumped out ahead. Like realistically, I don't want to buy a hotel right now. If you know anything about hotels, your peak season is basically not at the destination, just the regular standard hotel. Your peak season is from March to like the end of October. And in November, you just like this. Is just start doing this. November, December, January, February, and then you pick back up in March. So now I'm buying all these hotels, and we're already in COVID, so it's below market, and then it's going to tank even more. I would rather wait until February or March, right? When the market's starting to pick up and you start to get deals. And I still think we'll get deals at that time. But by then, these big guys like Blackstone, and Blackstone is just one group of many, right? That's just one. Matter of fact, Colony Capital, which is a kind of a hedge fund group, they're in the hotels, medical, you name it, they do it, right? And they just sold their portfolio. It was a portfolio I was looking at. They sold it for $67 million, but you assume $2.4 billion in debt. I wasn't assuming no debt like that, nor did I really have the capacity to. But I mean, we could have came up with some cash to do that deal. But my point is, like, you got guys like that can throw money around like that, man. I mean, it's just going to be tough. And these guys are smarter, so they're going to go to the big pocket guys. Like, I'm not going to waste time.
Mike, it's I think I heard you say that one of the reasons that you're going ahead and buying the deals that you're seeing now instead of waiting for peak season is that these major hundreds of billions of dollars players are going to be entering the market soon. That's you're saying that specific to hotels, and a case could be made that hotels hit the worst hit the worst of COVID at the very beginning because all of a sudden everything got canceled. That didn't happen to apartments. It's not like all of a sudden apartments were empty. The vast majority of those tenants were finding a way to pay rent. The vast majority of those landlords were finding ways to collect rent. I don't know, was there mortgage forbearance for hotel mortgages?
Some receive forbearance, but even when they come out of forbearance, what they gonna do? They got to face reality. They're gonna be behind. I mean, you got these moratoriums on apartments. Like, there's some people in there that's taking advantage of it. Some are paying, some are not because they don't have to, and some are want to pay but just need to work a deal out. I mean, it's basically three pots. You're paying, you're talking, and you're not doing anything. That third one, those are the ones you got to get rid of. And you get quite a few of those, you're in trouble.
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, Mike, these are my assumptions, is that if all you're looking at is the macroeconomic factors, hotel owners are experiencing more distress than apartment owners are right now.
Oh, yes.
And so there ought to be more opportunity to buy hotels at a discount than there are to buy apartments at a discount September of 2020. Do you think what do our listeners, what do I need to do in order to get access to those apartment deals when those owners are finally experiencing that distress?
Two things. One, you need to have a relationship with some of the brokers, right? Because this is all they do all day. They cold call and have relationships with multiple apartment owners. But you too can do the same thing. As you said, you have what's the web link you got?
CoStar?
CoStar, you can print out, and there's another program as well, similar. I start with an M. I can't remember what it is, but it literally lists the LLCs. It may talk about when their loan comes due. There's some reports that show people in default. Man, cold call. I mean, that's all these brokers are doing. I wish I could tell you they were doing something else. Yeah, they are networking. And yes, when they sell something, they get success. But a lot of their deals are cold calling.
Yeah, Mike, thank you for telling all of our listeners exactly what I've been doing to try to find deals for the last few months. I appreciate that. Um, so build those relationships. I know what I'm seeing from brokers right now. There are people who are just willing to outpay me on the deals we
Yes.
broke. I tell you what, 42 units in Walnut Hills, and I had been in conversation with the broker before he got his deal signed and put out his offer memorandum. And he sent me an email telling me before I got the info that he was going to be putting it out at 1.7. And I started writing my LOI then and there. And like 30 minutes later, he texted me, "Oh, sorry, it's 2.7. My mistake." And I was like, 10 cap to a 6 cap, just like that. Great. Thanks for the text message, man.
Yeah, exactly. You could have kept it, man.
Yeah, at 1.7, I would have found
No,
it. I would have found the money
we
right
own
there.
that one. I already know those numbers, man.
Yeah, right. So there's one other thing that I think we're experiencing in Cincinnati that we've been experiencing over the last handful of years that's not going away, and I think it's going to make it more difficult for local investors to find good deals, and that is the lowering of barriers to entry in real estate investing
Mm-hmm.
over um, over the entire nation and over the entire world. The availability of information now, thanks. I say thanks to the internet. I know the internet's been a thing for 20 plus years, but now that we've finally figured out how to connect over very long distances and get access to information about markets where we don't live, it's like you can't get all of the bees back in the jar of Cincinnati real estate investing. The
Mm-hmm.
cash flow that's available in the Midwest and available in Cincinnati, everyone knows, and they're not going to unlearn that there's better cash flow here. I think that's
That's
going to
right.
make it tougher. I think cap rates have shrunk somewhat permanently because more people are aware of the kind of cash flow that you can get in a market in Cincinnati. Have you been
That's right.
you operate at a much more national level than I do? Are you seeing the same thing, Mike?
Yeah, I mean the Midwest, man, it's a lower cost, a lower barrier of entry, man. I mean, it doesn't cost as much, but once you get out to the West Coast, Washington, California, New York, I mean, if Florida, Miami, it's expensive, man. I mean, stuff selling at a 4 cap, 3 cap, sometimes a 2 cap, and sometimes I don't even know what cap that is, even if it is a cap. I mean, so naturally they base it on appreciation. And so you can't cash flow. Like now, look, let's say you bought something for $1 million and you sit on it for a year in Florida or New York, right? Uh, but you can only rent it for what, 2,000 a month? Like, that's not gonna pay the debt. But a year later, now it's worth 1.2, maybe 1.3. I don't know. It's crazy. 2 or 3 years later, right? So, I mean, it has its offsets. I think that's why house hacking became such a big deal, where people could just rent out rooms and then finally be able to way to create a cash flow. But yes, in the Midwest, I see it all the time. People going to St. Louis, Kansas City, um, uh, what else? Pittsburgh, et cetera, man. The cost of living is down. You can cash flow units, and I think that's why they go to these cities. That's why people in California, they make their money. They sold a house, they made $1 million, they made $2 million. And they're like, look, I'd rather just get a monthly check. I'm tired of putting in something, then I gotta wait 2 or 3 years. I just want some cash flow once a month, man.
I'm sick of working so hard on my single family in LA. I'm gonna go get 40 units in Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, that's right, man.
Yeah. So what you all just heard Mike say is go find an appreciating market and invest there and leave Cincinnati to Mike and me. That's fine. I get, and you know, I've heard a lot about that on Bigger Pockets recently. And if you listen to the podcast, David Green being a big agent in the Bay Area, they talk about appreciation a lot. And that even within Cincinnati, there are neighborhoods where you can invest for that appreciation as opposed to cash flow.
Mhm.
There's a good diversity of opportunity in investing in Cincinnati. Mike, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't? Anything that I missed?
No, man, I think you answered it all, brother. You
Awesome.
know,
Are there, we've had a couple of people ask if there are any books on real estate investing that you recommend.
hmm. Like I said, Robert Allen, No Money Down in the '90s. Um, Honestly, man, not because I wrote this. If from broke to millions, if you want to do apartment buildings, this is a very simple plan and shows you some of those same techniques. Uh, as you begin to get big, and then let's say you want to scale, I would say read The Hard Thing About Hard Things by, oh man, what is his name? Andy Moskowitz. I can't think of it, but The Hard Thing About Hard Things, amazing book, talks about scaling, and how once you get to one point, that manager may be good to manage people from, you know, 10 to 50 people or, 10 to 100. But once you get more than that, then you got to scale up and bring another management system. And what do you do with your old managers? And, you can get to this $1 billion empire. Now, whether you want to get to the $1 billion empire or just, $1 million empire, $1 million net worth, you got to understand about the tough questions you got to ask and the thought process. Because no matter when you're going to start growing and you're going to have to start building your team. And I think that's one of the great things I enjoyed about that book.
The
There
Hard
you
Thing
go.
About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. I'm
There
getting
you
it on
go.
Audible right now. I hadn't heard about that one.
Yeah, that was a great book, man.
Buy with one credit, confirm purchase. Awesome. That'll be my next one. I'm in one of Tony Robbins' books right now. This will be next.
I love Tony Robbins, man. Did you ever, now you mentioned Tony, did you see his video on Netflix?
I'm not your guru. Yes, I have yet to go to one of his seminars. I definitely need to do that.
Yeah,
That's an
after
excellent
seeing that, I
video,
was
though.
like, I think I want to go to one of his seminars, man. I want to be
Right?
in there like, pump, 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 pump.
Joe Fairless is a big fan of Tony Robbins. I know he goes to some of those seminars. I need that opportunity. I haven't done enough seminars and conferences in real estate investing as well as in general mindset and
Yeah,
personal
no,
growth.
man, Tony Robbins, every time I see him, all I can think about is Jack Black. Is it Jack? Yeah, Jack Black. Is it Jack Black? Yeah, Jack Black. Uh, he was in that one movie and he was like, "Oh my gosh, you're Anthony Robbins." And he put these big hands. He was like, "Get your banana hands off of me." It's like, because Anthony Robbins, I don't know if you've seen his hands, they're
Yeah,
huge, man. Oh my God. Jack Black. Jack Black, yeah. He does a lot
gotcha.
of
Yeah, yeah,
comedy movies.
yeah. That's Jack Black. Awesome. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us, answer our questions, tell some of your story and some of what you're seeing in the market right now. Thank you. For those of you listening in, the best ever mastermind webinar next month, the last Tuesday of October. Not sure what day that is. I'm not looking at it, but it'll start at 7 o'clock. I am interviewing my CPA, Phil Weichert, who specializes in real estate investing, in tax prep for real estate investors. And we don't have the exact number yet, but he's going to tell you how much money he saved me in taxes in 2019 and how he did it. And that's going to be a really helpful opportunity for you all to hear some of the different things that are available to you as real estate investors, but also Phil is a great guy. His business is growing, and it's a great opportunity to hear how he operates. Mike, did you want to
Yeah.
add something?
Yeah, make sure you ask about depreciation. Oh my goodness. That's one of the greatest gifts of taxes.
We will have a cost segregation story for 2019 for sure.
Nice, nice.
Yes. Um, Sharmini, yes, he can show you how to pay $750 for your federal income taxes. Excellent. Thank you all again for attending. Thank you again, Mike, for for joining us. We will see you all next month.
All right. See you guys. Thank you so much.